Hello everybody and welcome to another Tonebase stream. Today I have the incredible pleasure of introducing Alberto Mesirca in his first ever Tonebase live stream or Tonebase engagement of any kind. He will be talking today about how to play Scarlatti's music on the guitar, and he knows what he's talking about. He's a bit of a Scarlatti expert and in fact has written a book on the subject of Scarlatti consisting of a couple of transcriptions of sonatas. I will let him talk about that when the time comes, but before we go any further, I would like to announce a couple of things. First of all, this is a public live stream. Most live streams on Tonebase are not public. They are reserved for our members. And if you would like to check them out, we have 4 to 5 live streams every week with incredible guitarists. Just this week we had Irina Kulikova, Alberto Mesirca. Last week we had Tilman Hopstock, Julia Ballare. We've had people like Scott Tennant, Rafael Aguirre, Marco Tamayo, Bill Cannongeiser. Pretty much anybody you can think of, we've probably had them on. So if you're interested in taking part, we have this offer for all of our Tonebase members. You can start a free trial that will last you 2 weeks and you can check out the live stream. Our viewers that are watching us on Tonebase get to interact with me and with our guests that we have on. So if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, I recommend following the link in the description of the video so you can watch on Tonebase instead. If you watch on Tonebase, you can ask your own questions, and more importantly, we have a very special gift today for anybody who is watching on Tonebase. You can download a free new unreleased transcription of Scarlatti Sonata K466 by Alberto Mesirca. He's offering this to us as a gift to welcome us to this live stream and to encourage many of you to go check it out. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to go to the link in the description of the video and watch on Tonebase instead. There's a link in the description of the Tonebase event that will take you to where you can download the score. Now, the score itself is uploaded on the Tonebase forums because we have forums and dedicated threads for every single live stream that we do. So there's actually a very good way for you to send in questions before we go live by going to the forum and asking your question before the start of the stream. Of course, for this particular stream, it's too late because we've already started, but for any other upcoming streams, if you would like to go and ask a question before the stream even begins, the forums are a great place to do that. And in fact, we already have one question in the forums before we even went live. That's also the place where you can download the score and all the other materials that we will be using today. We have a lot of really cool learning materials that Alberto prepared for us today, and some of them will be uploaded into those forums, so please check it out. Tonebase Live is where you can interact with us, ask your own questions, and then the forums are where you can download the score, and you can also send in questions for other live streams, keep talking about this live stream, download the other materials, and so on. Now, my friends, I'm really excited about this. For our old viewers on Tonebase, you already know this. Welcome, and please remember to use the red ask button to ask a question. If you do, I will be able to overlay the question into the video. Anybody will be able to see the video. Remember that on Tonebase Live, unlike Facebook or YouTube, the chat is not saved. So use the red ask button to ask a question. It will be shown in the video itself, and then it will be saved forever and ever as long as there is Tonebase Live. So, very excited about this one. Hello everybody who's already here on Tonebase. Paul Kennedy says hello, good afternoon from New Jersey. June Eberhardt says hello from Roswell, Georgia. Bogdan says hello from Siberia. Hi Bogdan, it's great to have you on here. Davide Borsa says hello everybody from Como Lake in Italy. Beautiful. Gunnar is in Stavanger. Stephen Holland is in Iowa City. Giuseppe is in Italy. Blaise Laflamme is in Quebec. Kevin in Oregon. Gökçe, it says hello. Derek is in Kendall. Vilio, hello from Vancouver. Dirk. Tomasz Kolodze, Kevin, hello Rod from Reseda, California, Derek, Diego, everybody, thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm really excited about you. I'm just going to check really quickly that the video is live. It is live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So I'm very excited about this, guys. I hope you are going to enjoy this as much as I will enjoy hosting it. All right, so as always, remember, if you have any questions, you can send them to us in the forum. Questions, suggestions are very welcome. Here's a link to the forum. You can also find it in the description of the Tonebase event. And if you would like me to talk about, if you'd like to talk to me about something more private, if you'd like to make a suggestion to myself instead of on the forums, feel free to write me on my Tonebase email address, mircha@tonebase.co, which is also on screen right now. All right, so without further ado, Hello, Alberto, and welcome to Tonebase Live. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi, Mircea. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor for me to be here. Wonderful.
It is
wonderful.
my pleasure.
It's great. It's great. I would like to welcome also all the guests that are so kind to be here with us talking about Scarlatti, to play, if you don't mind, the sonata that I gave as a gift to the Tonebase friends. So,
Yes.
If you don't mind, should I play some?
Please go on. Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful.
Let's listen.
Okay. It will be a nice start because it's very special. It's a sort of special combination between the stile galante by this noble way of playing, of writing by Scarlatti, combined with the most popular influences that he heard in the streets, both in Naples and in Spain.
I can't wait to learn more about Stilo Galante and everything else. All right.
Nice. So, this is the first sonata that I played. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Mircea. But as you know, and as the friends know, these sonatas were originally written for cembalo. So I think that for the interpretation on the guitar of these sonatas, it's important to be conscious of the possibilities of what the guitar can bring and which are the similar aspects with the cembalo. So in terms of sound emission, both are plucked instruments actually, and whereas a keyboard instrument can work well on different ranges and make bigger jumps, the guitar in positive can bring more timbre, dynamics, colors and depth, of course, because we read one octave lower than the original type of writing. And
can I just make a really short interjection? Cembalo, many of our English-speaking viewers will know it as harpsichord. It's the same. It's the same instrument. Yeah. No, yes, I say exactly. Cembalo because of Germany. Though I know in Italian it's also cembalo. But so the harpsichord is like a piano-like instrument.
Yes. Exactly, it's a keyboard instrument which was very popular. Thank you, Mircea. In the Baroque period. And actually it doesn't touch directly Scarlatti, but there is a big connection with noble plucked instruments such as the lute, especially in the French tradition, because the lute tablature was the first source of notated music for many harpsichordists of the brisé style. We have some cases of, for example, Jean-Henri d'Engelbert, who transcribed Ennemond Gautier, who was a famous lute player, and Froberger, in his tombeau, pays homage to the brisé style of the lutenist Blanc Rocher. And regarding Scarlatti, his writing has got also something in common with the lute type of writing, and according to what the musicologist expert of Scarlatti, Ralph Kirkpatrick, we talk about apparent or impressionistic polyphony, which is similar to the transcriptions for lute of vocal compositions, in which adding or abandoning a voice appears as a free compositional choice, and the texture is thickened or lightened with less voicing respect compared to the, for example, to the organ compositions. We have to think that Scarlatti was appointed as the successor of Frescobaldi in Rome, so he had a very prestigious work while already still living in Italy, and he has been educated on the counterpoint lessons of Palestrina and the tradition of the four-voice madrigal. For example, his idols were Pasquini and Corelli, and he took from Frescobaldi actually the love for experimentation and the virtuosic fire. But what is interesting as a development is that he passes from four voices, from this complex polyphony, to two voices, and this is a clue which is very important also for us for interpreting his sonatas, because this two-voice texture recalls more the relationship of a singing voice and basso continuo, and where there is the polyphony, the movements of the voices and the entrances of the subjects are indicated but not taken to their full completion, and the clarity. Tell me.
So I just wanna unpack a few of the terms that you've used. So this is really fascinating. First of all, what was the name of that style you mentioned? The lute style you mentioned in the beginning.
Brisé style, the brisé. It's this brisé with two e. It's the typical style of the French lute, full of ornamentations.
Right, brisé.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. All right. And then when you talk about how Scarlatti moved from a four-part counterpoint to two-part, do you mean generally for most of his works, or just for specific pieces like this?
Especially for the harpsichord sonatas, because he wrote also some pieces for organ, and of course also some operas in which he uses this complex polyphony, but mainly these pieces, these harpsichord sonatas, which were meant actually as exercises for the Queen of Spain. It's incredible that he wrote, until the years of Kirkpatrick they were 555, but with the recent discoveries of another musicologist called Fadini, they arrive until 600 sonatas.
Wow.
And the incredible thing is that all of them have got something special and very innovative, and he doesn't repeat himself very much.
Right.
And yeah, apart from the noble music of the vihuela or the lute, there is of course also the influence of the most popular traditions, such as the Spanish guitar. And he heard it much in the streets of Portugal first, and then in Seville and in Madrid. And there are some affinities which we find in some sonatas, which are created through the use of pedals, which remind of the open strings of the guitar, above which some chords and progressions move. And also the use of modals. Yeah, and also the use of modal scales. In fact, there are some sonatas, and I'm going to play one soon, which have some chordal progressions which use some modes. And then, of course, there are some popular influences like the gypsy voices and the Andalusian voices, or the brass bands from small towns, and also Middle Oriental modes. We have to think, for example, that Naples was an important harbor city with a lot of mixture of cultures, like Venice. So the Moors culture was very deep in those towns. And tell me, sorry, I don't.
Oh no, I was going to say just a quick biographical note. So Scarlatti was Italian from southern Italy, if I'm not mistaken, but he worked in Spain for a significant time of his life, and in Portugal as well, for a while.
Yes.
And at the time of his birth, Naples was part of the Kingdom of Aragon, which is which was the eastern side of Spain, so to say. Castile and Aragon together, united to form what is now Spain. So Naples was pretty much under Spanish occupation at the time, and so the influence of Spanish music was very apparent in the time of Scarlatti's life.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Just wanted to put things into a bit of context. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell it, but it's totally right. In fact, there is this continuous mixture and cultural exchange between Italian influences and more, of course, also Sephardi, Jewish tradition and Portuguese. For example, we find also some sonatas with a lot of repeated notes, and these are reminiscences of the mandolin or the castagnettes, or also of the feet movements of the flamenco dancers, for example. And another important influence in Scarlatti, which can be also a clue for us to interpret it quite well, is the influence of the international theater, which is especially cultivated while he was living in Seville. And there is an interesting figure who was living in the time of Scarlatti, who is Farinelli, the famous castrato, who was the one who was in charge of organizing all the operas at the court of Spain, and he was the one who brought the manuscripts of Scarlatti from Spain to Italy. There are two important manuscripts, one in Venice and one in Parma. And I would like to play for you, if you don't mind, a sonata which represents well this combination between, again, the more classical Baroque noble part, and also the use of harmonic harmonies which recall the modal progression of the guitar, which is the Sonata K322.
Trust me, I will never mind.
Okay.
Listening. All right, let's do it.
Wonderful.
Oh, sorry, wrong side.
Okay. notice, this sonata, like all Scarlatti sonatas, are divided in two parts. And according to Kirkpatrick, especially in the, not in the exposition of the material, but in the development section, the most interesting things happen. And in this case, when it goes to minor, especially he makes a stop in the dominant, and then it goes strangely to minor. And here we find an harmonical particularity, because there is this when you go, so and in the twin section, the second part, so it, so this is also a reminiscence of the popular tradition, rather than following the rules of the regular cadences that in the classical style of that period were developed and kept by composers.
Right. Yeah, so we would expect the composer to do a certain thing, and sometimes Scarlatti doesn't do that. And that's part of that is probably because he has this popular influence. And I really wanted to go back and just accentuate a little bit about what you said about the pedals. This is fascinating. If you think of you know this, but I'm just accentuating what you've already said. If you think of the typical sort of flamenco chords, a lot of them are resulted from a simple guitar chord, with open strings in the top, creating this really strange harmony like this or like that, right?
Yeah.
Which would really only have come about by a guitarist playing a partial chord and letting these other strings ring. And this has become such a staple of flamenco, and it sounds so flamenco because you have these strings that say exactly the same, like pedal tones on top or on the bottom or on both sides of the chord. Scarlatti uses this in his composition for cembalo, which is where this doesn't make sense. It's not idiomatic for the cembalo to write that music, to imitate that sonority that he knows from the streets of Spain and Portugal and Naples.
Yes, totally right. In fact, finding inspiration from another instrument is also something which is a meaning of genius, to find inspiration from, an instrument that doesn't work at all like the one that he was thinking of or writing for, actually.
Right.
And so Scarlatti never wrote anything theoretical. Just in the introduction of his exercises, he wrote that D is for mano destra, so right hand, and S is for mano sinistra, and that's it. That's the only thing. So in order to play combining our personal choices and taste, but also with some rules which were taken for granted by composer of his age, the ideal is to work on or see some treatises which were written in his period, or a little before or a little later, sort of collection of the Baroque rules of interpretation, because I think that nowadays it's very important to know this in order also to respect the view and the will of a composer of that age. Unfortunately, we don't have recordings of that period, so we cannot understand well what they meant, but we can try to deduct it from treatises of that period. For example, Mircea, if you kindly can show the Frescobaldi file. So Frescobaldi, we mentioned him before. Thank you. He was a very important harpsichord and organ player, and he wrote this Toccata in partite di intavolatura di cimbalo in 1637. And the introduction of this, you can see in the following page, please, Mircea, gives many interesting interpretational advices. For example, at point 6, I translate from the Old Italian, he says, when there is a trill on the right hand and contemporarily the other hand is moving a voice, one should keep a quick trill and play more calmly, thus to avoid confusion. Or at point 7, In a passage of 8 and 16 notes together at two hands, one should not play too fast, and the hand that plays the 16 notes should play in alternance a shorter note and a dotted note. And his way, Frescobaldi anticipates the complex theory and praxis of the inequality, which means performing notes which appear similar rhythmically in a different way. And in general, this introduction talks about that Frescobaldi understood the acceptance of the manner of playing with singing affects, so affetti cantabili, and different movements, diversità di passi. And this leads to talk about the relationship, which is typical of the Baroque, between musical praxis and poetical metrum, music and ars oratoria, and music and affects. Accentuation in music does not follow just rhythmical or harmonical rules in this period, but also principle of the metrics, which rule the composition of poetical verses. For example, a little earlier than Scarlatti, Vincenzo Galilei, who was a famous lute player actually, wrote a book called Dialogo della musica antica e moderna, and he said that by listening to a tragic or comic actor, if one focuses not on the text but on the cadences of the voice, he will notice many nuances which reflect affects, which should be kept also in music. And also another theoretician called Vicentino, who wrote a book called L'antica musica ridotta alla moderna pratica, said the musician should imitate the accents of a speaker who has the power of enchanting the audience. And in this period, although the opera was the most successful form of music, instrumental music gets more autonomy, and this creates the interest on theories and treatises which talk about the different aspects of the technical problems on composition and on performance. And the musical thought of the 18th century focused much on the Affektenlehre, which is the theory of the affects, and which says that there is a specific relationship between the single affects or feelings and the harmonical relationships or the rhythmical effects and the melodic cells. And some theoreticians of the 17th century found musical styles which correspond to specific states of mind in order to move the soul of the listener. For example, the son of Johann Sebastian Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, talked much about the Empfindsamkeit, the so-called sensitive style, describing the need of being moved by passions as a performer in order to be able to move the others. And in the same period, in France, François Couperin was saying, "J'aime beaucoup mieux ce qui me touche que ce qui me surprend." So I love more who touches me rather than who surprises me, underlining the importance of moving by talking to the imagination, the heart of the audience, rather than to amaze with the technical abilities of a virtuoso. And in this sense, coming back to Scarlatti, if you don't mind, I would love to play a third sonata, which is K34. Actually, if you want to show it, Mircea, I have it in the book called Mesirca Scarlatti, I think, the bigger PDF file, and you find it at page 8 of the PDF.
Sounds good. I'm going to it right now. And once again, I will never mind. By the way, we have a couple of before we get started, we have a couple of questions from the audience that we can take afterwards at some point. But also, the audience is saying so many congratulations to you on all platforms. So Giuseppe, Gasparini, Diego, Gökçe, Paul, Blaise, Tomasz, everybody saying congratulations. This was amazing.
Thank you
Bill
so
Young.
much.
Diego says he loves the stream. So please, I just wanted to share a little bit. I know you can't see the comments, so this way you know what's going on. All right, so is this the correct score?
Yes, it's this one. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
So also here we can go back to the topic that there are just two lines, basso continuo and a sort of singing voice.
Right, and I will follow on the score, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. Yeah. So
Amazing. Amazing.
thank you
By the
so
way, I
much.
echo Bill's comments. It says beautiful ornamentation and trills, exquisite articulation and timbre. So
Thank you.
incredible. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here. By the way, one quick mention I wanted to say about the last thing you talked about. So the Affektenlehre in English
Yeah.
is a doctrine of the affections or doctrine of the affects.
Great.
If you encounter that name, that's what it refers to.
Thank you.
And affect is this really interesting combination of like mood and tempo and expression. It's almost like the concept in Indian music of the raga.
Yeah,
although
exactly.
That's associated with a scale as well, whereas this not doesn't necessarily have to be. But yeah, incredible. Thank you so much for being here. By the way, more comments.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you can also open the file Mircea, which is called tone-based methods. I will quote some methods which are important to know. Thank you. Great. So for us, not having something written by Scarlatti, it's important to know at least 4 important books. One is by Johann Joachim Quantz, which is a Versuch einer Anweisung, die Flöte traversiere zu spielen, which is a method actually for flute, published in Berlin in 1752. Then the one by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, which we mentioned before, Versuch über die wahre Art, das Klavier zu spielen. It's a method for keyboard, published in Berlin in 1753. Then Leopold Mozart, the father of Mozart, of course. It's a book for violin, Versuch einer gründlicher Violinschule, published in Augusta in 1756. And then Türk, Klavierschule, 1789. And okay, all of them talk both about ornamentation and how to deal with rhythm, which is something really important in this style. And the prelude, the general prelude to talk about both ornamentation and the way of leading the rhythm is the distinction which many of these theoreticians do between the good notes, referring to Italian note buone, and bad notes in relationship with the metric distinction of thesis, which is fall, and arsis, lift. So according to Quantz, for example, the good notes, note buone, are the accented ones, and the bad ones are the ones which pass quickly. The first ones need to be played with major prominence, and the most flowing ones must be played with some disequality, inégalité, even though they appear of the same rhythmical value, and the inégalités, though, can't be played in fast passages or pieces, both vocal or instrumental. Generally, it's wrong to think that the theory of the inégalités is something just French, that one should apply just for French music, because even though the theorization of the inégalité has found in France its bigger source, the praxis of the inégalité was known and used also in Germany from the 15th century. There are 2 important organ books which testify this, and in Spain and in Italy from the 16th century. For example, Tomás de Santa María is a famous theoretician who wrote a book called Libro llamado Arte de tañer fantasía así para tecla como para vihuela. dated 1565. Then yeah, thank you, dear. Then
Man, they had a talent for long names.
exactly, exactly. Then Frescobaldi and then Caccini wrote Le Nuove Musiche in 1601. And regarding, if I want to very simply explain the inégalité, so there are many ways of playing differently the rhythmically similar notes. It could be long short, as a theoretician called Louis Bourgeois wrote in Les Droits Chemins de Musique in 1550. Short long, like Frescobaldi said in the introduction that we found before, but also what Tomás de Santa Maria referred as la más galana de todas, so the most beautiful of everyone. He said the 8 notes should be played in groups of 4, with the first 3 slightly rushed and a prolonged last one. Quantz was saying that in a rapid passage, in a very fast movement, in which the disequal playing can't be kept on 2x2 notes, one can accent and slightly prolong the first note of a group of 4. And the same Quantz says that in slow pieces, the shorter notes should be played with some disequality, even though they seem of the same value, and one should lean on the strong ones, thus on the first, the third, the fifth, more than the ones that which pass quickly, so the second and the third. Regarding this, and also about the argument that I'm going to talk about afterwards, which is ornamentation, of course, I would like to play another sonata by Scarlatti, which, dear Mircea, you find in the big PDF file at page 29. It's the Scarlatti Sonata 208, which is slow. Okay, I would like to mention quickly what they mean for slow after this explanation, and it's a slow sonata which is perfect for finding new ornamentation in the second repetition of both parts. Why do I say that they took slow in a special way? Because we have to rethink all the speeds of the Baroque period. Adagio means ad agio, so in Italian means at your own comfort. And what does it mean? They didn't have the Meltzer metronome, so they were calculating by heartbeat, and so adagio, at your own comfort, means 60 beats per minute, which is actually quite fast. And so from that one should calculate all the other movements of speed.
Such an important point to make. This is something that I have to instill in my own students, and we talked about it recently in my live stream on reading music and understanding tempo. One quick question. So these PDFs, are they from your book?
Yes, actually, this, it's taken,
So, listen, Bill Young is asking, how can we buy your arrangement on recordings? So there's a book that was published by Edizioni Curci, and it's called 14 Sonatas for Guitar by you, Alberto Mesirca, and this is this is one of them. The other one that you heard is also your own transcription. And there's of course the free one that he's giving away to viewers of this live stream. But I do encourage you to go out and buy the book because they are wonderful. And then maybe after this, at some point when you think is a good moment to take a break, we'll answer some user questions. And then we'll jump right into it. It doesn't have to be now. At any time. You are the boss. I'm only here to do to facilitate. So
fine. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Is this the sonata? Is this the one?
Yes. It's Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Okay. Incredible.
So,
Incredible. I have
no.
such amazing comments here also from Diego, from Giuseppe, from Paul, from everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, it's my thank you very much.
Hey, this
Yeah,
piece is so beautiful. The
yeah,
minor part
it is.
especially, and the little speed, a quicker thing you do on that motive that comes ti-tum pa pa pam ti-tum pa pa
Yeah, it's
pam.
beautiful.
Oh, so beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. No, actually the music speaks by itself. It's really something very special, I think. And well, as you heard, I mean, this is a perfect piece to work on ornamentation and to see also the topic of ornamentation in Scarlatti. So actually, the ornamentations are also related to the good and bad notes that we mentioned before and their accentuation. For example, the appoggiatura, this. So this is the most common and important grace note because it enriches the melody, the harmony, and gives grace to the voice. According to Quantz, they can't be linked to the note they precede, but to the following one. And Leopold Mozart says that they must be played with the same bow movement of the following note they refer to, so it's called in German Vorschlag, and also with an accent, and they take the time from the following note, so never from the preceding one. This is something really very important also for the interpretation of Scarlatti. Why? Because if you play on the main beat the appoggiatura which falls with a bass, the risk to play that note stealing the time from the preceding note means that actually the rhythm will be somehow not regular, because the bass, which usually keeps the regular rhythm, comes also earlier. So the ideal is to give just the right tempo to the grace note, to the appoggiatura. And there are also some differentiations between the short appoggiatura, which is in upbeat, contrarily to the long appoggiatura, and in Scarlatti often they are fully written with many discrepancies on similar passages of the same sonatas. According to Turk, the other musicologist, there are other notes apart from the appoggiature which must be accentuated, and preferably these are the intervals which behave as dissonances related to the bass, thus notes that through a slur create a dissonance, or the syncopated notes. Then the notes which don't belong to the diatonic scale in which we modulate, and the notes which for their length, height or depth stand out are according to the laws of harmony. Regarding the syncopes, for example, Scarlatti is full of syncopes in his sonatas, and before playing some examples I would like to quote again Quantz, because in his chapter dedicated to the deeds of the one who accompanies, he says that the syncopated notes must be accentuated and separated by different bow movements. And in the same chapter, he says that major emphasis must be put on long notes, which in the same bar are presented together with shorter ones, as well as dissonances which serve to differentiate the different affects. So, for example, the Sonata K380, which appears, dear Mircea, at page 45 of the big PDF. Maybe I play just a... Cool. I played just the first part because the second one serves to talk about modulations. I play it also to show the syncopes in Scarlatti and how they can stand out more. example of syncopes in his sonatas. And what I said before, that in some bars, I mean, it's more complex to say than to show. I will show it right now. In some sonatas in which there are some shorter notes, but which are close to longer ones, and these longer ones need to be emphasized more, we find an example in a beautiful sonata, K74, which is in the PDF file at page 14, dear Mircea. If you can... Thank you.
Of course, this is what I'm here for.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you. And if you can pay attention, friends, from bar 10 on, you will notice also there that the longer notes will come out more. So actually, as you see, in Scarlatti there are, of course, no piano, no forte, no bow of legato, phrasing, but it's the music itself that tries to speak. And so through these details we can find some clues in order to make it even more interesting and alive.
Can I say something on that note, actually?
Yeah, please, of course.
This is why it is vital to study early music and to know the context and to look at these resources. By the way, the resources you posted, that list of works, I will upload this into the Tonebase forums as well, which you can find a link to in the description of the Tonebase event. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you have to go to Tonebase to see this. But we will have a list of this, because if you don't know these things, you can't ever be expected to take informed choices. It's like you're asked to vote on the politics of a country you have no idea on, right?
Exactly.
This is why we learn early music. It's not because we want to be dogmatic. It's because we want to be free, but in a way that makes sense. So
exactly, totally right. I totally agree with this. Great. So as you see, there are these notes that can come out more, no? They actually, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Right there, yeah, exactly. And this sonata leads also to another topic, which is very, I'm really affectionated to it. It's very special, which is the deceptive cadenzas, which is very special. Something in Scarlatti is very common and very special. So let's go back to the theoreticians. So Quantz says that one deed of the harpsichord player is to put emphasis on the notes which create a deception from the regular cadence, so the modulating notes. Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach says that in a melody, all the sounds which are alien to the tonality must be interpreted quite in forte. So according to these theories, the deceptive cadenza, which eludes the expectation of a perfect resolution, so moving from the 5th grade to the 6th, needs some emphasis on the arrival note. And the same, for example, also in Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, because he says that deceptive cadenzas are expression of violent passions as rapid changes of expression. For example, we find, well, in Scarlatti 208 we played before. This one, so it goes to the 6th. Or the Scarlatti 466 that we played at the beginning. It does It's crazy. He does it 3 times before going to the normal tonalities.
It's like playing rock paper scissors and just doing the same one all the time, right?
Exactly,
You don't expect that he's gonna do it again and again, and then finally he moves on. It's like
exactly. That's crazy. And then, for example, also this sonata that I just played, Sonata K74. Wait. Where is it? Yeah. So it goes twice from the 5th to the 6th before going to the first one.
Right, and that is a deceptive cadence. You know, the bass goes 5 to the 6th, the leading tone goes to the tonic, and then all the other voices go down.
Exactly. And this creates something very special because you don't expect this. You expect to land back to the first tone of the scale, and it goes to this 6th. This argument leads also to talk about modulations. So I repeat myself. Scarlatti never wrote something, but there is a very important clue in a work by a student of him who is Antonio Soler. And I think that many guitarists know Soler from the Brauer Sonata, because in the last movement there is this strange hallucination in which Brauer says Soler hace visita a Beethoven, I think, if I remember well. Yeah. Well, Soler is why I think he chose the Soler, because Soler is famous for a beautiful fandango for harpsichord, and of course the first movement of the Brauer Sonata is fandangos y boleros. Well, so Soler was a student of Scarlatti while both of them were living at the Escorial, and he wrote a book called Llave de la Modulación, in which he expresses all the strangest ways to pass from a tonality to the other. This is also, apart from the ability as a player, an ability of modulating really in a experimental way, was also an ability, a virtuosic ability for a player of that era. And Soler makes a distinction between the rapid modulations, modulaciones agitadas, and the slow ones, which are the modulaciones lentas, and he says that the modulations which are fast don't follow the preparation, conocimiento, and the interruption, suspension, in order to change tonality. Scarlatti, in the Sonata K380, which again, dear Mircea, is at page 45, makes something interesting regarding these fast modulations in the second half of the sonata, which I'm going to play now. And if you can focus well from bar 52, but I will play the whole second part. Sounds good. So if you saw from that bar, to go back to the original tonality, he makes a long round through the tonalities, which I think it's very special. And another, for example, if we take back the Sonata K208, I tell you the page, it's page 29. Almost in the beginning, when from bar 7. Now he makes it's called the third relation of the third, because he passes quickly from E major to C major, which is very far away, through a common note, which is the E. So here now. And then through a chromatic passage, he goes back to the dominante. And so on. So can you imagine from here to here, it's totally far away. And this is also a genius ability, in order also not to make it too harsh. This change of tonality, to compose a melodic line which permits to change to a very far tonality without sounding harsh. I think it's genial, and
it's
I think
incredible.
one should keep it in mind. Yeah, one should keep it in mind also while performing it, for the interpretation. So,
Sorry, this is something that I always struggle with. You play it a million times and the magic can be gone. But for somebody who's listening in the audience, you have to really put yourself in the perspective of them hearing it for the first time. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, incredible.
That's totally. So the last big topic I would like to talk about, and then we can also work on questions if someone has, is the trills. The trills, which is a big thing for the Baroque, and it creates much debate, so it's something I would like to talk about. So let's first see what the theoreticians of that period were saying about the trills. Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach said that the trill must be prolonged when it refers on long notes, and must last as long as the written notes, differentiating it, of course, with the half trill, which is shorter, and always begins on the note which is superior to the real note. This is important. Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach says the trill must start with the superior note. Sometimes the trill can have a resolution, which are two notes which can be played at the same speed of the trill. And the trills must be used differently according to the character of a piece and to the meaning of a single phrase. There are also trills which start with from the inferior note than the real one, and the trills must be used with attention and thrift in order not to affect the purity and clarity of the harmony. Leopold Mozart says trills must be at maximum distance of tone or half tone, but there is an exception which he quotes, which is by Giuseppe Tartini, who was the famous violin player from the Baroque, who is famous for Il Trillo del Diavolo, talking about trills, because Tartini says that in his Regole per arrivare a saper ben suonare il violino, rules in order to be able to play well the violin, he exposes the possibility of using the augmented second in the trills. For example, if we are in a minor tonality, E minor, and then we go to the dominante, if there is a 7th grade, so he says in the Baroque period it's possible, because Tartini used it in his trill of the Devil's Trill, it's called also, of course. The trill on the cadence can be played in accelerando using piano and forte, and he makes a distinction with the battement, which is something coming from the French tradition. The battement is a trill which starts always with an inferior note, which is at a distance of a half tone. For example, in Scarlatti, like in Bach, often there is the possibility of inter-exchanging an appoggiatura with a rapid trill, and the symbol of TR or its graphic symbol appear indifferently, and the two symbols don't have an independent meaning. This comes from comparing the two important manuscripts of his sonatas, one from Venice and one from Parma, because both have different symbols for the same thing. And in the Sonata K1, which I'm going to play soon, the trills work well just with a resolution, even though it's not specified by Scarlatti himself. And Kirkpatrick says that especially in slow movements or in trills in which the auxiliary note forms an expressive dissonance, it is desirable to stop a bit on the first note. Before playing, I would like to show, dear Mircea, if we can, there is a file called Trills on Classical Methods, because we have to talk about something which maybe also is something that many people either don't know or think it is wrong. In the classical period, mainly the trills were made on one string with a legato, and also in Gaspar Sanz's Instrucción de Música, he says that the trill is just this, by legato on the left hand. But all the great players like Giuliani, Carulli, Carcassi, Aguado say that it is possible also to play trills on two strings. For example, if you go a little lower in this file here, yeah, thank you. The second possibility, he says, of course, we have to see that in the classical period, the trill doesn't start anymore from the upper note rather than the real one, but from the real one. So he says that the possibility of making trills is with two fingers. And if you go in the second page, Mircea, we can show another. Yeah, this is Aguado. If you go a little lower again, a little bit, maybe also in the next page. Sorry, he says a little lower again. Yeah, here. Yeah, he says, il est bon de savoir que quelques professeurs font les trills simples sur deux cordes différentes. So it's good to know that some professors do trills in two different strings, and so it shows also the effect. And if we go also in some other page, Carcassi also talks about the trill in two strings. If you see, yeah, so
there's a small 4 and a small 1 there. It's hard to see because
exactly.
it's a little small, but so yeah, that will be with the fourth thing, or that will be with the first.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, we can also go on with other examples, but these all show that both for Baroque or for classical, already in the classical period, they were experimenting trills on two strings. And in my opinion, in order to play Baroque, this is closer to the harpsichord one, where it's possible, of course. And so I try to use it if I can. So how to use it? Usually the real note is on the lower string of the two, so, and the higher note is of course in the upper string. Then you have to define if it's a half tone or a tone by the tonality, of course, because it depends much on the scale that we are using. And then usually the alternance of fingers that I play, I mean, I learned it from Wolfgang Ländle in Germany, is this alternance of P, A, I, M, P, A, I, M, P, A, I, M. I find it comfortable because, for example, there are some students who ask me, why don't you do it like a tremolo, so P, A, M, I? And actually, it's because if you pluck M on the second string and then I back to the first, the movement is a bit, a little unnatural for me. It's better for me to alternate using P, A, I, M, so that the hand is always doing a very natural movement. And for example, the Sonata K1, which is one of the most famous, is the opening of Scarlatti's Esercizi. I often use it, also with some basses which have to keep the rhythm. And there are also some resolutions of trills, like Kirkpatrick was expecting for this sonata. So I'm going to play the Sonata K1.
Would you like me to put it on, to put the score on?
Yes, please. Yes, sorry. It's the page. It should be page 1 from from that PDF. Thank you, dear Michelle.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Can I mention a short anecdote? I studied early music with two people. In Germany, I was studying it with Anthony Spiri, who is a piano and harpsichord player. And here in the US, I have Paulo Det as a visiting professor.
Wow.
Who's
Yeah.
a lute player.
Amazing. Of course, it's
And-
amazing.
Yeah, and Anthony would always push us towards experimenting with double string trills and sort of had that tremolo, that harpsichord influence, while
Yeah.
Paul hated them.
Yeah.
He's like,
I
no,
know,
it's
I know.
only ever legato.
Exactly. I know,
And so I
I
had
know.
like an angel and a devil, like two influences,
Of course.
one harpsichord and one lute,
Exactly.
telling me to do opposite
Of course.
things.
Of course, but it's a continuous struggle also for me. But
Right.
I tell you, in my opinion, while playing pieces which were meant for a keyboard or a harpsichord, on one hand, if you want to imitate the sound with a crispy sound and a prolonged trill which lasts in time and keeps the energy, I think that the cross-string trill is the only solution. Then you can, I also, for Renaissance or Baroque music from the lute tablature, from lute literature, I also use the normal trills on one hand in legato. But for these sonatas, I think it's nice to use that type of trill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Nice.
Would you like to take some questions, or what would you like to?
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
if you want, with pleasure. I mean, one last topic can be articulation of the rhythm, but we can really mention it at the end. It's not a big problem.
Wonderful. This way, people have a reason to stick around to hear about the articulation of the rhythm. Wonderful.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of comments. I didn't want to interrupt you because you were talking so beautifully about so many different topics. But first of all, the chat is dominated by people just really appreciating how incredible your performance is. And this goes for all platforms. I can only really monitor chat on Tonebase. So if you are on Tonebase, then thank you. For Facebook and YouTube, we will read them later. And if you want to ask a question and you are on Facebook or YouTube, follow the link in the description of the event to the Tonebase event. The Tonebase event is free and you can ask your questions there. If you're on Tonebase, remember to use the red ask button. That is a better way to ask your question. So what I normally do is I reward the people that took part in the forums by asking their questions first, and we had one question in the forum before we began, so we might as well start with that. It's a very simple one to answer as far as I know. This is the dedicated thread for the forum. This is where you are able to download this sonata either by clicking this link or by clicking this image. They will both take you to the piece that that Alberto is giving you for free as a gesture of thank you for watching this live stream. Below, this is the link to the live stream itself, where we're live right now, and below we have a question from Diego Arboleda, who says, "Hello Mircea and Alberto. I hope you are okay. My favorite sonata is K292 L24 in E. Hope you have it in mind. I don't have its scores." I don't have it in mind, but maybe you do. "Some guitarists play part B of that sonata, the resolving B7, in a low octave, others in the high octave. Any particular reason for transcribing it one way or another? Personally, I like the low octave." Now, Alberto, and I understand if you don't have every single Scarlatti sonata memorized, right? But in general, octaves are an interesting thing. I noticed in K380, you did in the first, you did.
Yeah.
But in the last section, you did the.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's while transcribing, it's a combination of practical aspect of making things work, and also, of course, of managing to being respectful as possible to the original. I think that the ideal is always to be as faithful as possible to the original range, but sometimes it doesn't actually work for the guitar. That's why there is a transposition on one octave lower or higher even. So I think it's a matter of the player to choose which version to play, and of course one has to feel comfortable, but on the other hand one has also to know the original version and then decide. My suggestion is never trusting just the transcription, but confronting it always with the original. Because at least you can see what Scarlatti himself was doing, and so if he kept a sort of high octave, then you can see what the procedure was in order to maintain that octave if a lot of middle notes of the accompaniment were cut off, or a bass is put an octave higher, or if everything is put one octave lower, just to respect all the notes. It's a delicate thing, but I think one can do it, and the ideal is to confront always the transcription with the original. An important detail, try to find the sources which are urtext. So, for example, many players and many transcribers used the Longo edition, which was an important edition in the first half of the 20th century, but it has been made by a person who didn't have a deep knowledge into the Baroque research. So, for example, he put in the edition piano, forte, some ties of legato in the phrasing, and this is totally. He was also correcting some notes which he thought were wrong in the harmonies of Scarlatti, whereas nothing was wrong. But so the ideal is to go back to the urtext source and then see what has been done on the transcription, and also change according to your own taste.
Yeah, this is probably the most important thing. I assume that a lot of our viewers already know this, but if you're working with early music, then everything is a transcription. Nothing was written for your instrument, and so you have to look at the original. There is no option to not really do that. You're not playing the piece. You're playing somebody else's version of the piece if you don't do that. But more importantly, it is really hard to balance when something is unplayable in the original octave, whether you will break a line at a certain spot, or whether you'll take the whole line up or down. The question, the answer is, unfortunately, it depends. It depends on the situation.
exactly.
And you can have this problem a lot in Bach if you play the first lute suite. There's entire lines that are like 2-3 octaves below what you can play, and you really have to make some choices, and that's why you have to look at your text, because if you don't, then somebody else makes those choices for you, and you don't understand where you are. So you have to be able to make those choices yourself.
Exactly.
All right, very quick.
Totally right. You know.
Yeah, tell me. Sorry.
Yeah, tell me.
No, you go.
No, just to be. I mean, I felt assured by knowing that also lute players need to arrange Bach suites, because of course they weren't written for the lute, but for this Lautenwerk. So they also needed some arrangements of some parts. So that gave me some peace of mind.
This is something I've been talking about for a long time, and we mentioned this in the recent live stream with Brendan Aker, that all the lute suites and possibly every single piece that Bach wrote for the lute was likely to have been written for the Lautenwerk, which is a type of harpsichord that has a big bell. Actually, I can show it to you.
It's interesting to see.
It's a crazy shaped instrument. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. It's like all round on the bottom. It's very weird. So I have a top view here, like that, right? So you play it like a harpsichord, but it has this crazy string arrangement. It kind of looks like a lute, like a massive lute, like a lute made to be seen from space, sort of. And then the same same thing. It's actually interesting on the bottom. It's even crazier looking, because on the bottom it has this. Sorry, this is low resolution, but it has this belly. It's kind of like the shape of a lute, like a massive lute. Crazy looking instrument.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a super interesting answer. And unfortunately, a lot of times when you deal with experts in a field and with a topic as complicated as early music, the answer is very often it depends.
Exactly.
Very rarely is there a direct, here, do this.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So let's look at some of the questions from the Ask section. And by the way, guys, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, please go to the Tonebase link to be able to ask questions. I have a really easy question from Tomasz Kolodjej from more than an hour ago. I'm sorry we didn't get to it earlier, Tomasz. He's saying, do you have Scarlatti Sonata K1 in your repertoire? And if yes, can I buy the arrangement?
I do, but I don't think it's in the book. But we can also keep in touch later. Sure, with pleasure.
Would you like me to put a graphic up with your website or maybe your email address?
Please. Yeah, please.
What would you prefer?
The website is fine because it has all the contacts. It's albertomesirca.com. So it's very easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mircea. Great.
Just made that graphic and I'm gonna flash it on screen right now. So please go and check out his website. This is incredible work, and I encourage you all to go and buy the arrangements and recordings and everything else you got. All right, so that was a pretty easy question. All right, let's continue with the next question. Is also very easy. Paul Kennedy, is his book available and is it in English? Paul, it is in music. It doesn't. It's a score book, so English is. So it doesn't. Probably you have an introduction or something, but most of it is.
There is music. There is a little explanation in the beginning, but then exactly, it's in music.
Yeah, exactly. 80s Shredder, who is Jimmy, I know him as one of our loyal viewers, says, "This is awesome!" in all caps. So thank you, Jimmy, for that. And before we get to other questions, another thank you message from Stephen Holland, who says, "Thank you for this lesson. I only ever attempted to play Scarlatti music this week, so this is much appreciated." Stephen, perfect timing. In that case, very, very happy to have you here. All right. Davide Borsa says, "Great performance. The sound of Scarlatti is influenced also by the great pianist interpretations like Michelangelo and Horowitz." Is a question. I think is the question. What do you think? What would you call your influences when it comes to this? I'm assuming it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, at first, when I didn't know much, yes, Michelangelo's recordings and Horowitz were, let's say, that my first love that brought me to study Scarlatti. But with the time, when I also started to learn a little bit more of ancient music, early music, and period instruments, and the fact that harpsichord, being a plucked instrument, has some big similarities with the guitar. Then also that the harpsichord has got special texture in order to repair from the lack of dynamics, and so the type of writing is specific also in order to emphasize some sections rather the others. So I learned and loved more and more harpsichord recordings. For example, Scott Ross I loved much. There is Scott Ross was an amazing harpsichord player who recorded the whole Scarlatti sonatas, which were known at the period, and I think his version is very, very beautiful. But of course, yeah.
Sorry.
Tell me. No.
No. I've this is something that I have a lot of experience with as well. The people that are the most influential in general music, they're not always the specialists in early music, and it doesn't mean that what they do is wrong. It just means that it's interesting. There are you can learn a lot from studying particular recordings of people that have studied early music specifically, rather than generalists who might dabble in early music. And yes. that's I think and from this point of view, early music is sort of the most interesting sort of scene within a scene in the classical music world.
But you are totally right that in any case, especially in a specific period, a great soloist who was not a specialist was important to break a door. For example, also Segovia did a lot with some old repertoire, which are also another interesting thing regarding Segovia playing the Baroque. Sometimes we think that his way of playing was too much linked with the guitar, too much with too many rubatos, and working a lot on the beautiful sound of this range of the strings. But actually, if you listen to Pablo Casals or Casado playing Baroque music, they do the same. So their way of performing that type of music was also was according to a view they had in that period. And so, of course, maybe with less knowledge on old treaties and more focused on a beautiful sound, but I think it's wrong also to think that Segovia, who was also a door breaker for some repertoire for us, was just following some idiomatic aspects of the guitar, and was influenced by this for his interpretation of early music. It was a trend in that period.
And also, we can't fault people that have lived in a certain historical time before this research happened and before these books and materials were rediscovered for not knowing what they couldn't have possibly known as well. There's been a lot of discoveries lately in the past couple of decades that have changed the way we look at certain things, because we found writings, we went and realized that there's information available on how things should be played. And this is something known as the historian's bias, that we tend to look from our sort of privileged position today of having access to all this information and poo-poo people like Segovia for, or people in earlier generations for not knowing these things that they couldn't have possibly known. Maybe we'll find out, in 2 decades, that everybody was playing hanging down from the ceiling. You can't expect us to have known that now. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So a fascinating topic. By the way, I have great news. So my friend and fellow tone bass instructor Brandon Aker, this inspiring musician and highly successful YouTuber as well, but just really all around expert on early music, is joining us on YouTube right now.
Great.
And he has a question. I don't know when the question was asked because I don't think I can see the time when it was sent, but he's saying, nice to see a video about Baroque music. Question, I'm enjoying hearing about the 19th century cross-string trills like the ones we showed in those materials. But what is the connection between those 19th century trills and the use of them in Baroque music?
I was telling this because mentioning that already in the classical period they were experimenting trills on two strings, and saying also that it's wrong to think that for classical music or for Baroque music just the trill on one string was thought. And it's wrong also to think that the cross-string trill is an invention of the 20th century. Rather, it was something that has been developed already in the classical period. That's that's just my choice to show also some examples from the classical methods.
Right. That makes sense to me. So there is this this idea that cross-string trills were invented in the 20th century, and you were showing through this that actually they are definitely at least 100 years older, if not more.
Exactly.
And just to introduce the possibility that maybe they were, started to be used even earlier than that, possibly. Right?
Yeah, and also established in the guitar repertoire, actually.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so we have a very cool and fun question from Vilio, and then another one from David Chizzi, which is very interesting. Let's do the fun, very quick one from Vilio first. Vilio Celli, by the way, is an Italian living in Vancouver. Do you have a favorite Scarlatti piece?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love them all, but the K208, this is one of my favorite, and also the 466, the first one, the one that I gave for tonebase. These are, I think, two of my favorite. Yeah.
Right, the 466 is the one that you can download today if you follow the link in the tonebase event description. Here's a very, very interesting one from David Chizzi, who says, do you find that your audience is typically informed about Scarlatti and the Baroque harpsichord?
I don't think much. I mean, it depends. It depends. Not so specific in terms of ornamentation, the using of inequality, and mainly I think they have a sort of general knowledge, but not very, very specific. So yeah, but it doesn't mean anything, because like Couperin was saying, no, that he said, I love more who touches me rather one who surprises me, or someone who plays everything according to treatise, but actually then in the end musically it doesn't work. That's also something which is sterile, I think. So I think one should, in any case, arrive at the hearts of the listener, trying to find a balance, of course, between the will and the ideas of the composers and the personal taste.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And actually, this does bring me to an interesting topic, and that is, your audience. Depending on where you play, maybe they won't know anything about Baroque music. Maybe they won't even know about classical music, and you'll get the typical, "Hey, I didn't know you can do this on the guitar." Or maybe they'll be experts. Maybe they are there, at the complete other end. You're playing at a convention for early music, and everybody has 2 PhDs, right? But interestingly, so that can depend on where you play. But interestingly, if you are active in competitions, I have bad news for you. Most of the jury does not know as much as you would want them to. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 people in the jury that are really highly knowledgeable, but it's very possible to play the sonata that you just played, the major one, the A major one. I forgot the number. 208. And when you have that part that goes ta-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-dum, ta-da-dum, maybe they will think you just don't know how to keep rhythm. You can't count, therefore you're bad. Just like automatic X, because you don't know how to do it. And so the assumption is that, you're not playing what's in the score, therefore you're wrong, and you have to battle this much more. So while, it's a very artificial and weird environment in the first place, if you are doing traditional competitions, maybe stay away from this kind of music, because it is really, really difficult for people to appreciate the things that you know. And they often assume your choices are because of a lack of knowledge, when in reality they can happen because of an abundance of knowledge.
Yeah, you are totally right. And you said also something really interesting, that you can be criticized because you don't play what's written. But actually, for the old music, I was studying with Massimo Lonardi, who is an expert of for lute music. Massimo plays often with Lorenzo Micheli and Matteo Mela, let's say. For this period, especially the music of Gaspar Sanz also, for example, it's wrong to play just what's written.
Yes.
Because they were taking for granted that many players knew already a lot of things that were not necessary to be written.
Yes.
Such as
Exactly.
ornamentation, or the way of dealing with the tempo.
Or dynamics. Exactly.
Or dynamics, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember vividly this. This is something we talked about also in the live stream with Brendan a couple of months ago, which I encourage you to go check out. But you know, it's if you're not adding to the score these things that were expected of you, you are actually not doing what they would have expected you to do. It's the opposite of the situation that you have in the modern period, where some composers opt to write everything down. Not all, but some composers do. And so that's the equivalent of, imagine playing a lead sheet. You know, getting a jazz lead sheet and just playing the notes that are written.
Yeah,
that would be
exactly.
the worst jazz concert ever, right?
Exactly.
And so it's not quite as extreme, but it's more similar to that than it is to modern classical music that has very exact notation.
But the association with jazz is totally right. Also for the basso continuo realization, you know, they were improvisers. Scarlatti was a great improviser. Bach was as well. So I think that there is a lot to do with jazz, actually.
Yeah, and if you have a fugue, a standalone fugue by a composer, you would almost always be expected to improvise the prelude to it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a whole movement that you're supposed to just make up. On the topic of, by the way, of people not understanding that you are doing what is written, I remember this is not early music, but I played for a very long time, you know, the Valses Poéticos,
Oh yeah, of course.
Right, and there's this this second waltz in D major that has this Viennese section, which sounds like a Viennese waltz. And in the Viennese waltz, the second beat is always longer than the others, right? So it's 1, 2,
yes,
3,
yes,
1,
yes,
2,
yes,
3.
exactly.
So I was playing the second waltz, and I was doing this in a competition. And I got comments repeatedly from juries that you know, it's beautiful, but you gotta study with a metronome in that D major waltz, right? Because you're going very far out of tempo, and it's just it's just so frustrating when that happens to you. So just be prepared that that this might happen to you, and that you're still right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, let's see if we have other questions right now. So people are talking about Wolfgang Lendler and appreciating him and saying how sad it is that he passed away so soon, which is you know, absolutely absolutely true. And I don't think we have any more questions in the chat right now, so maybe we could jump into that rhythmic articulation topic that you mentioned before.
Yeah, exactly. Something brief. I mean, before also, if there are no other questions.
Well, I think it's a great chance for people. It's a great chance for people to say, if you do have questions, now is the time to put them in the ask section. We'll give you the time while we talk about this other thing, and if there's anything else after, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah. So in terms of articulation and rhythm, well. Also here, Scarlatti doesn't say much rather than writing the notes, but in order to keep the rhythm always alive, one should give life to the rhythmical cells that are presented. For example, the rhythm which is composed by 8 notes, 2 16 notes, and then other 2 8 notes, tan ta ta tan tan. I mean, if it's played rather on time, it can sound quite academic in a wrong way. So the ideal to give some life to this is to make the 216 notes a little shorter, like the rhythm of the fandango actually. We found it already in the Sonata K322. But there are other examples. For example, there is a sonata which is very difficult to play. I hope I don't make too much. It's the Sonata, dear Mircea, K239. This
is it in the book?
No, that's external. And here you can see actually Wolfgang Ländle's handwriting. It's because it has been handwritten by him. So I stole him this from the Kassel period when I was studying with him. This is beautiful, super difficult, but it reminds so much of the Spanish guitar of the Baroque period, of course. And Ländle geniusly added also some rasgueados because they represent perfectly the character of these rasgueados. Yeah.
Amazing. Man, that beginning of the B section where he goes B, A, G, that's so beautiful.
So beautiful.
What key?
No, it's really, it's a beautiful sonata,
Incredible.
Like I said, very, very difficult, but you know, with this rhythm and I tell you, I heard also the original harpsichord version, which is all, like we said at the very beginning of the speech, 1 octave higher.
Right.
It doesn't have the same depth, frankly. I mean, some sonatas, I think, like some other pieces, which were written maybe for piano, some pieces work even a little better for me on the guitar. I don't want to be sort of pro guitar against original repertoire, but I think some pieces work even better on the guitar.
Well, I mean, there's the typical example is Asturias, right? Leyenda by Isaac Albeniz. It's so awkward to play the repeated note without being able to have the melody on a different string. No, this is incredible. I have a question, and that is, how did you get into the music of Scarlatti? And would you consider yourself an early music performer, or a Scarlatti lover, or a Scarlatti specialist, or do you have certain periods and other composers that you're really passionate about? What's your what's your area of expertise?
No, I love also a lot the contemporary music. I work a lot on contemporary music, and I have the luck and the chance to work a lot with. Well, they can be also Italian composers. Angelo Gilardino, for example, we worked a lot together. Or, for example, Dusan Bogdanovic wrote 3 small pieces, also inspired by Ricercari by Francesco da Milano, because I'm a lot in love with the early music and contemporary. So, Italy, like monuments, is full of small treasures, also for music. Can you imagine that the Biblioteca Marciana in Venice counts the musical material in meters, not even name of composer, in meters. So yes, and a lot of things are not discovered. And well, where I come from, in Treviso, there is a lute manuscript with some previously unreleased fantasias by Francesco da Milano, which Polo Det already actually knows because he came here to take to examine. And from this, Bogdanovic wrote 3 Ricercari, which are really amazing. So actually, yeah, I love the combination between old and very new. This is what I love the most.
Incredible. It's funny. I'm kind of the same to a point. So
yeah, cool.
It's nice to see you. We had in our masters in Düsseldorf. I studied in Germany too, right?
Yes, of course.
We had to choose a specialty, and one of the possible specialties was early and contemporary music. It was exactly the two things. I did that, by the way.
Amazing.
And for those of you that don't know, that have never been to Italy, it's one of the most incredible things is that you travel around in these small towns and sometimes in big towns, and everybody goes to see the Trajan's Column and the Vatican, and it's all in Venice. But like even whether you are in Rome or in a small town, you can just walk and turn around the corner and see a statue from the 2nd century or from the first century BC. And it's just there on the street. It just exists as part of the landscape, and it's been there for thousands of years. It's truly an incredible place from that point of view. And I'm a big fan of Italian culture in general.
Unfortunately, not very well kept by the Italians, but it's also part of the culture.
That is true, and that's also something I remember in Romania when I was in a seaside. One time I saw Greek ruins from 2,500 years ago, maybe 3,000 years ago, being used by some people to dump garbage.
Here too. I cannot laugh much louder because here it's the same.
Yeah. All right, so we have 2 questions that were sent in. Maybe we can take those and then finish the live stream. This is such an incredible pleasure to be here.
For me too.
Truly. So Tomasz sends both questions in, and he says, did Scarlatti compose songs in the form of fugue or invention, like Bach? And I'm interested about that because invention, especially, is a 2-voice thing, so it's very similar to the style of sonata that he composed. Yeah, that was a quick answer. Quick yes.
Not many, but a few. Yes, I never tried to transcribe them. They work well, of course, for the original harpsichord. There is a famous one which is called the cat's fugue, because the first intervals are so strange that they sound really like a cat trying to jump on the keyboard, and then from there he built a melody, and it's genial. It's fantastic. Yeah, that's
as the owner of 2 cats, I can see how that would happen. I sometimes find myself typing, sending important people messages like 15 J's and semicolon, and it's incredible. All right, and then the second question is there a fingering table for trills and ornaments for the right hand? There's many, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, regarding the left hand, you mean?
I don't know. He doesn't specify. He just says...
Okay, because for the right hand, the possibilities, I don't think they are many actually, because like I said, someone plays the alternation like a tremolo, and some, like I explained before, like PAIM, like I do. For the left hand, actually, it's also quite practical, because the real note is always the one in the lower string, and the other is in the upper string always, and then the intervals, you have to find them according to the tonality you are playing. So then, you know, it gets a bit more complicated when the trill is not just one voice, when you have some basses which you need to fret, and or some harmonies inside, then it gets a bit more complex. But when there is a single trill, you can work simply with this small rule.
Yeah, yeah, and generally, you know, fingering is difficult because it depends on the instrument, and nobody, you know, was playing the same instrument as you. In those times, the scale was different, everything was different.
Yes.
But there are many tables for ornamentation in general that compare different notations for the same thing, because we are very used to the sort of German and Italian notation of trills, but the French had their own thing with the little swooshes around, right?
Exactly.
And so it's quite confusing. For a very long time, I was playing early music and not even knowing what those things are. So you can definitely find a number of resources, some more trustworthy than others, comparing the different notation styles for trills and, you know, possible execution patterns. And you do have some freedom, you know, according to within the confines of style, on how to perform trills. All right, that's pretty much it for these questions. We have a lot of people saying thank you already. Alpkan Tache says thanks a lot for intensive information. Did you like how I pronounced it?
My pleasure.
I know how to read Turkish words. And we have a lot of people also saying hi on Facebook and YouTube. So I hope you've enjoyed this live stream with us. I hope to have Alberto on in the future for other live streams again.
Yeah,
it would be wonderful
it will be my biggest pleasure. Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. And for everybody who's new, who hasn't watched these live streams before, again, we have 4 to 5 live streams every week. Like I said, we just recently had Irina Kulikova 2 days ago, Tilman Hopstock 2 weeks ago. We've had Julia Ballare recently, and we've had great names in general, such as Sharon Isbin, Marco Tamayo, Bill Cannon Geyser. Anybody you can think of, probably we've either had them or at least we've tried to bring them on board. So I hope that you'll check out Tonebase Live. We have a wonderful community of people in the forums that I encourage you to also check out. That is the way to get to the score that Alberto offered to all viewers. The funnel is a little complicated. If you're watching on Facebook, follow the link to Tonebase, and from Tonebase in the bottom there's a link to this thread which has the file in it. So every live stream we do on Tonebase Live has a dedicated forum here in the live stream discussion category, and you can submit your questions before we go live. Here's a live stream with Steve Goss, Renee Izquierdo, Julia Ballare, all sorts of in-house live streams, Tilman Hopstock, and so on. And you can also submit your own videos. This thread at the top allows you to submit your own videos performing a piece or an excerpt from a piece. And in these live streams, I go live myself, basically giving you a free lesson for all Tonebase members. You can get a free Tonebase trial for 2 weeks if you'd like to just submit one video and try it out. And people submit their own videos there that you can then get personalized, individualized advice on. And I go live with these virtual masterclasses as soon as I have 3 submissions. So we always accept submissions at any point. And there's also the live streams with Renee Izquierdo, who does excerpts, small bits of pieces that he offers advice on. And these are usually pre-planned on a given date. For example, the next one will happen on May 8th. So if you'd like to play for Renee Izquierdo and want a free lesson with him, basically go into this thread and submit a video of yourself performing. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much to everybody who was here from our regular viewers. By the way, if you are still here, we have this really, really great viewer that participates in all the streams and doesn't even speak English really, but just watches it for the musical information, Giuseppe. And this is very funny because if you look at this, the last 2 resources that you mentioned here, you have Giuseppe Tartini and Francesco Gasparini. and his name is Giuseppe Gasparini. So you have him,
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
have him
Amazing.
right here, right there.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I will put this link of resources in the forum as
Yeah.
well. You'll be able to download it
Great.
after the fact. And any other resources that you allow me to post. I know we didn't even get to all of them. We had some others here. We had, for example, this first K1.
Oh, yeah.
We had these
Yeah.
things. So any one of these that you'd like me to put into the forum, I
Okay.
can. Obviously not your book. Please go and buy Alberto's book if you want. Because they are wonderful transcriptions, and it would be wonderful if you guys could support him. So that's great.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for being here, Alberto. Thank you, Dario Bitetti, Vilio, David Chidsi, Mike, Gökçe, Derek, Tomasz, Bill, everybody who was here today. I don't have a chance of reading all of your names out, so if I did not, it's just because you were not in the chat right at the end, but I love you all equally. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Brendan Aker, for joining us on YouTube. It's great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the quick answer to your question. Yeah, for everybody else, have a wonderful weekend. I hope to see you all very, very soon. And I'm looking forward to the next Tonebase live stream. So see you all in the virtual space. Bye-bye.